was just pure, unconditional love. It was like they were there just to comfort me and to help me through this crossing over process. And I didn't recognize all of them, just some of them. But even the ones I didn't recognize, somehow I felt they knew me. Maybe from another lifetime. Maybe they had never been incarnated. Maybe they were my guides. I didn't know. But they were all there just helping me and making sure that I felt safe and I felt okay. I felt so loved and taken care of and so protected. It was incredible. As I said, I've never felt that in my physical life before. I felt like I was unconditionally loved in a way that I didn't have to do anything to prove myself. I was loved just because I existed. And so I had this terrible relationship with my dad, and I went to a British school where I was indoctrinated in British culture, and so I had all British classmates, British teachers, and my parents being Hindu, and I grew up in Hong Kong, which is a Chinese city. I learned to speak Cantonese, English, and a dialect, of Indian dialect, 3 languages simultaneously. So I was immersed in 3 cultures. And so I was very multicultural. So when my parents wanted me to have an arranged marriage, it was very difficult for me to agree to that. So I rebelled at first. And if you can imagine, I went to a British school where I was immersed in British pop culture. And just to give you an idea, at that time, my hero was Cyndi Lauper. You remember her, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and remember the way she used to dress and everything. I loved Cyndi Lauper because she epitomized what I wanted for myself. But at the same time, being in the culture that I was in, I was actually extremely shy and subservient. And so that was my upbringing. And so anyway, one day though, I agreed to an arranged marriage because all my British friends had gone on to college, and my Chinese friends as well, they'd gone on to college and to get jobs, they were working. And my Indian friends all had arranged marriages, so I got lonely. And so I gave in and I said, yes, I will go through with an arranged marriage. Can I travel? Can I get a job? Can I earn my own money? And he would say no. He actually said no to everything. And we were expected to live with his parents. And his parents also said that no, I had to learn how to do housework and be a stay-at-home wife. And 3 days before the wedding, something inside me said, I can't live the rest of my life like that. So I ran away. And if you know anything about Indian weddings, they are like 2-week-long affairs with, everything was booked. The relatives had arrived from overseas, the musicians were booked, the venues, the food, the catering, and so I ran away, and of course the entire community were so upset. Thank God my mother stood up for me, but I brought so much shame to my family and to my fiance's family. And every Indian person, it felt like every Indian person on the planet heard about it within 24 hours. And this was before the internet. Face to face, if you will, with my dad, but we don't have bodies or faces. So it was literally spirit to spirit with my dad. And I expected judgment from him. But no, all I got was love. Just pure, unconditional love. And when we are in spirit form, we don't communicate with words. We don't need language. We don't have vocal cords. It's literally spirits or souls or essences or whatever you want to call it, just, excuse me, just merging together And I knew everything he wanted me to know, and he knew everything that I wanted him to know. We just understood each other. And I realized for the first time that just as I had been a victim, or so I thought, a victim of my culture, he had been a victim of that culture too. He was doing the best he knew how of what he thought he's supposed to do as a father of a daughter. And he wanted me to know that he had always loved me. But because of the way he was brought up, because of the culture, he never knew how to show it. And in his lineage, daughters were considered a burden. And so he wanted me to know, though, but as a soul, all he felt for me was unconditional love. And I realized that when we cross over, we don't just leave behind our physical bodies. We leave behind our gender, our race, our culture, our religions, our beliefs. We leave all of that behind. We leave behind all the baggage and the traumas that we've accumulated over a lifetime. All of that stays behind. All of that is a here thing, here on earth, not there. So what crosses over with us when we die? What crosses over is your pure essence, your pure consciousness, your pure soul. And it was an incredible state of clarity where I could see the whole trajectory of my life like a tapestry from beginning to end, and here I was lying there. I reached a point where I was given a choice. Now, a lot of things happened while I was there. I was in the coma for about 30 hours, and I have had to, and because time is not linear, a lot gets compressed into that time when you're not in physical form. Over here, we process things in linear time. But in that realm, time isn't linear. And so much happened in 30 hours. But I reached a point where I was given a choice as to whether I wanted to come back here into my physical body or not. No part of me wanted to come back. This world can be so full of pain. I had been suffering. My family was suffering, taking care of me. So I wanted to stay there where it was so filled with love and so beautiful. But my dad said to me, "It's not your time." Now, he wasn't forcing me to come back, but he was encouraging me to come back. And so I still felt, but why? Why would I come back? My family would be suffering. I never would have imagined in a million years that I would be traveling and speaking and writing books. I mean, I'm the least qualified person for that to happen to. But so there I was being told I had a purpose, but I didn't know what the purpose was. So I wasn't being told my purpose, but I was given a vision, an image of a future of me talking to hundreds, thousands of people, and I couldn't imagine what would I be talking to all these people about. I didn't think I had anything to say. And so I wanted to know, how will the future unravel? And I was getting the message. And you know, it's hard to tell who the message is from. And he told me to live my life fearlessly. And he told me that was all I needed to do. You don't have to figure it out. So I started to open my eyes, and I saw my family around me. Danny, of course, he was smiling from ear to ear. And my brother had arrived from India. My mom was there. And so they were elated that I was opening my eyes. Now, I still had one foot in each world. So I started to say, "Dad is here, Dad is here. Did you see him? He was here. He told me it's not my time. I'm not gonna die. You can take all these tubes out." And so they were wondering what's going on. And they said, no, don't touch anything. And they called the doctor, and the doctor came in. And this was the doctor that had just come on duty after I went into a coma. And he was the one that tended to me when I came into the hospital in a coma. And I addressed him by his name. I said, "Good afternoon, Dr. Chan." And he said, "How do you know my name?" I said, "You." And you may laugh, but being dead is easier than being alive. But that's not an invitation for you to go there. There's a purpose, there's a reason for you all to be here. We need you here. But I want to share with you some of the things that I learned. This is a beautiful space with beautiful energy, and so you all feel this and you know this to be true, that without our bodies, we are so powerful and we're all actually connected. Our bodies, our physical bodies, is just a small part of who we really are. There is so much more to us, and that's what I realized. The real me is not this physical body. It's the spirit, it's that bigger part of me that's connected to everyone and everything. The other biggest thing I learned was that the reason I got sick was because of fear. Fear is the biggest disease we have, and let me elaborate, because I don't want you to be afraid of fear, but let me elaborate about what I mean. Each one of us, as we're growing up, and I'm looking back at my own life, I said I understood how the trajectory of my life contributed to me being sick and lying in that hospital bed. Every decision I had made in my life was made from a place of fear. It was fear of my dad's disapproval. It was fear of failing, fear of not being good enough. Everything, even when we do things like when we go to school, we fear failing more than we have a passion for learning. We're not taught a passion to learn in most cases. Maybe it's changing now, but certainly not when I was growing up. The reason why we study at that time was because we fear failing. When we get sick, what we do is we go to hospitals and doctors because we fear the illness. And so we go after the illness to eradicate the illness instead of having a passion for our bodies and our health and our lives and expand wellness. What I realized was that we are driven by fear. In every area of our life, our social media is driven by fear, our mainstream media driven by fear, our corporations, fear. We're driven by fear of scarcity, fear of not enough. The one thing that is lacking in this world, in this reality, in humanity, is love. And that is the only true thing, is what I discovered. That is what we take with us when we die. That is what pure consciousness is. It's pure love. It's pure love. That is what we take with us. That's the only thing that matters when you reach the end of your life. Did you make your choices out of passion, out of love, a love for living, a love for your life, a love for your family, a love for yourself? Or did you make all your choices out of fear? Fear of scarcity, fear of illness, fear of dying. That is the only thing that matters. And if I give you just one thing from my speech, it would be that. Make every choice moving forward from a place of love. And if every single person on the planet knew that, we would have no more wars, we would have no more hunger, we would have a much kinder planet. Because it still shocks me that as a civilization, we consider ourselves to be civilized and among the most civilized in the universe. We have a long way to go. I hope there are more civilizations out there on other planets, because we are still spending trillions of dollars on weapons to kill each other instead of spending that money to feed each other and help each other. We have enough. There's no scarcity in this world. There's more than enough. We just use it the wrong way because we've all been brought up on fear. And because of this fear, it makes people want to accumulate more and more and more. So this is why I share my message. And I know that if I knew this before I ever got sick, if I knew that all I had to do was love my life and follow my joy and follow my passion and love myself, if I knew that, and that I didn't have to win anybody's approval, that I'm loved by the universe, by the beings, by God, by whatever we want to call it, if I knew that, I never would have got sick in the first place. And that's why I share my story. And I want to say that maybe the ones who got to stay there are the lucky ones. And if you talk to my husband, he says that if life is a school, I must have flunked because I got sent back. So we all have, this is the way I understood it, because in that trajectory where I was at that time, it felt like I had the choice of whether I wanted to stay there or come back. And I know that the choice I made was the more unconditionally loving choice. So if our loved ones are given a choice, they will make the choice that's the more unconditionally loving choice for their loved ones around them. What do I mean by that? Sometimes people are in such a bind that their coming back can actually cause pain. Sometimes people's departure causes a healing that is required in the family, in the community. So it's only from knowing the bigger picture do we know why somebody leaves at a particular time or doesn't leave at a particular time. So we can never tell for someone else why they left at that time, but always know that there is a bigger reason, and with some people, when they reach the end of the line, then it's their time. I do think also that when people have completed their purpose, they may not go right away, but they may stay for a while, and then they may choose a time to go when they feel that their family no longer depends on them or needs them anymore. So it's a combination, I feel, of choice, of free will, and free will not necessarily from the physical, but more from the spiritual. So they gave me a book deal. I wrote the book. It was half written on the site. And then I worked with their editor, and we had Dying to Be Me, which Wayne wrote the foreword to. And then they flew me to Los Angeles. So Hay House flew me to Los Angeles, and Danny, both of us, and where Wayne was speaking on stage in front of 3,000 people. And and they had me sit in the front row. And so Wayne starts to share with the audience, and there's this woman who lives in Hong Kong, and she had cancer, and he starts to tell the story of what happened to me. And then he goes, wait, we flew her here. She can come and tell you the story herself. So he pulls me on the stage, and I start, and I'm about to share the story, and I'm looking out at the audience, and that was the scene I saw in the near-death experience of me speaking to this audience, and I was just flooded with emotion. And so I started crying, I started shaking, and then Wayne looked at me and he goes, are you scared? Because I was shaking. And he said, yes, I've never spoken in front of a big audience before. And he said, you've been dead and back, what have you got to be scared of? And that's when I said to him, actually, being dead is easier than public speaking. And so, buy her book. If you only buy one book, buy her book. And so the rest is history. After that, I kept getting invited to speak, and then it led to another book and another book. But I feel that it's my calling to share, because what keeps me going is meeting all people like yourselves, and Jessica, and people who actually tell me that it's helped them to hear this. So I am in gratitude to all of you, every single person that has heard my story, read my book, shared it, followed me. I'm in gratitude to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.